Okay, well, we'll get started now. So welcome to the regular board meeting of the Board of Supervisors for San Mateo County for Tuesday, March the 14th, 2017. Would you now all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Supervisor Pine?
Here.
Supervisor Groom?
Present.
Supervisor Slocum?
Here.
Supervisor Canepa?
Here.
President Horsley?
Here. Public comment?
Okay, public comment is reserved for persons wishing to address the board on any county-related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda or listed on consent agenda. Speakers are customarily limited to 2 minutes, but an extension can be provided by the board president. Mr. President, we do have 6 speakers. First one is Martin Fox, followed by Dylan Skiles.
Supervisor Slocum and Mr. Baltby and County Council Mr. Byers. Thank you for your service to the county, and thank you for authorizing Laura's Law, also known as assisted outpatient treatment. You have a copy of my prepared remarks. I would like to just leave them with you and have you look at the other item has been passed out. It's a copy of an article in this morning's San Francisco Examiner about the support that the San Francisco Department of Public Health is giving to the San Francisco Police Department. That looks very much like the successful program that Los Angeles County has already adopted, but particularly of interest to the supervisor from the 5th District, because mentally ill people are not dumb. They cross jurisdictional lines, and you will find that the individual who's running this program up in San Francisco is the head of their Laura's Law program. And that's what I think is important enough to interrupt my regular prepared remarks and point out to you, because Laura's Law is a crisis prevention program that is at the front end of a map for sequential intervention in dealing with keeping people who are mentally ill out of jail. And for the head of the San Francisco Department of Public Health to field this kind of operation is a major change in the way they've dealt with Laura's Law in the past. And that's why I thought it was important enough to bring to your attention separately. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Fox, for your continued advocacy for mental health.
Next speaker is Dylan Skiles, followed by Tim Jenkins.
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak here today. I'd like to thank the board members for calling the president of the Peninsula Humane Society and SPCA on our behalf and talking to him. What I can tell you is that those calls have been unheard. He hasn't done anything. So we're announcing that we are going on an unfair labor practices strike starting Friday at 6 a.m. until 6 a.m. on Saturday. It's a 24-hour strike, so that means that no animal control officers will be on the road, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. The managers might take over, but there's not going to be any animal control on Friday from 6 a.m. till 6 a.m. on Saturday. We've been understaffed since 2014. We have an extremely high turnover rate. This is mainly due to low wages. It takes 6 months to train an animal control officer and about $10,000 to do that. That comes out of your pockets and the taxpayers' pockets. Last year we lost 7 people, so 70 grand down the drain. It also when we have to constantly train people, it puts a drain on us as training them. Basically, this is one person that is doing this. This is Mr. Ken White, the president of the SPCA. He has not been listening to us. We've been bargaining for a a year and 3 months now with very little progress, and he's constantly threatened employees, sent out emails that are misleading, basically a lot of unfair labor practicing, and that's why we're striking. So starting Friday, hopefully we can avoid it, but starting Friday at 6 a.m., there's not going to be any animal control. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tim Jenkins, followed by Catherine O'Malley.
Hello, my name is Tim Jenkins. I'm a representative from the Teamsters for members who work at Peninsula Humane Society. I, like Dylan, would like to thank you for your efforts in advocating for a reasonable resolution to our contract. I wish that your efforts had been listened to. We'll be going on strike Friday at 6 a.m. For animal control officers to protest the unfair labor practices that Dylan described. So as a little background, he mentioned Ken White, the president. I did some research on him. Back in 2002, there was great controversy over his salary, his compensation, so much so that the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors threatened to withhold funding to PHS because it was so rich. There's an article in your packet where you can read all about that. So what they did is they negotiated a deal where he'd only make $170,000 back in 2002. So what has he done in the interim? He's handpicked the board of directors, and they have in turn voted to give him a 136% raise. Inflation over that time period is 31%, so adjusted for inflation, he's doubled his salary over that time, all while denying our members who make $16.36 an hour a 3% cost of living increase. This is obviously wrong. The last thing you should know is that they have been misrepresenting their average response times to you and to the other people they have a contract with. So animal control officers, they go out in the field, they help injured animals, they help police with aggressive dogs. And so they report those averages. And what we found is that those averages are not accurate because they've been misrepresenting individual cases. For instance, in one case, they said they responded 17 days before the actual call came in. So absent a time machine, this is obviously impossible. What that does is it skews the average. So they've been faking the average to cover up the negative effects from short staffing so that they could keep overcompensating their executive. There is something terribly wrong going on at Peninsula Humane Society. We asked the board, we asked the press, the donors, the members of the public, the animal lovers in the county, help us stand up against it, look into it, so that they can get back to actually taking care of the animals. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Catherine O'Malley, followed by Steve Gibbons.
I have 5 raccoons in my attic and you can't have them. Good morning. President Horsley, I had requested a minute and a half extension. What I have to address has to do with the privacy of patients and the records. And if we don't do that, I'm afraid it's going to cause a lot of problems, especially when it comes to what I believe is fiber optic cable being put into the communications devices on telephone poles, as I've seen around the county. If these are hooked up to the, in any way, perhaps we don't know this, perhaps we could know this, is that light bulbs, the curl bulbs, do we know what is in those light bulbs? Because if the fiber optics connect into our lighting systems, and this is the type of enigma that President Trump is philosophizing about, then he is perfectly right. And Edward Snowden's already told us that television has a product of receptivity to it. If the light bulbs have the same thing, the fiber optics AT&T is putting up on all our telephone poles, it's going to coincide with cyber. It's going to coincide with everything that is cyber, including medical records and everything else. Besides that, we have the problem of advice and consent that State Senator Jerry Hill is trying to address, and the probation for over 100 doctors out of 137,000 in the state of California. The Hippocratic Oath is not for hippos, but what we have to do is that a physician is not an entrepreneur. I have a problem with
Catherine, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to limit you to 2
Okay,
minutes.
can
And
we have-
If you would like to come back another board meeting for another 2 minutes, that's fine. Or if you wanted to send us something in writing, but we have a pretty heavy agenda, so.
I'm aware of that, but I am in touch with State Senator Hill, and I just called Anna Eshoo. I called State Senator Harris, who gets my emails. I'm trying to figure this out so that, the debacle and the protests can stop.
When you figure it out, you can come back. Thank you very much.
I don't want a non-hetero doctor.
Okay, next speaker is Steve Gibbons, followed by Helen Zimmerman.
Good morning. I'm Steve Gibbons, and my wife Peggy and I are here to talk with you because we are being required by the County Department of Public Works to perform an unnecessary replacement of our sewer line before we can secure a permit to remodel our home. The department has cited County Ordinance Code Section 4.28.040, storm drainage and groundwater, as a basis for their concerns. We of all residents understand their concern with groundwater intrusion and agree with their desire to limit waste and reduce cost. My wife and I both work for a local public agency which identifies natural resource protection as the first of our three major missions. The groundwater concerns with our sewer line are unfounded. 2 separate video scopes were taken during significant rainy weather, with neither of these videos showing any groundwater intrusion activity. Even after consulting with 3 different plumbing companies for quotes, we were told that they were surprised county was forcing us to replace it. We have been communicating with county staff over the past 11 weeks, but have yet to be able to find an amicable solution. We have continually expressed that the current condition of the line does not pose a hazard, the lateral is not in danger of imminently failing, nor is it allowing groundwater to intrude. We do not feel comfortable authorizing a project of this magnitude simply because it's part of the process. It's unreasonable, and quite frankly, it's unfair. We're frustrated that the Department of Public Works is not willing to use their discretion that the code allows for, and we are willing to enter into an agreement to maintain and replace the line at our cost at a specified later date that does not hinder the remodel project. We're trying to work with our county to reach a logical solution, and we feel it's illogical that county staff is enforcing a regulation on a condition that does not exist. We are a longtime Redwood City family, and we want to live here. We feel it is our duty as citizens to show up and speak out when something is wrong, and we appreciate your attention on this matter. Thank you.
I'm going to make a suggestion to you that Mr. Reporter is way in the back, and if you might talk to him about specifically your issue. If he's the last. There he is. Okay.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Our last speaker is Helen Zimmerman.
He's waiting to speak. There you go.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Supervisors, and Mr. Maltby and Mr. Byers. My name is Helen Zimmerman. I represent the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in San Mateo County. You've probably heard about the manner in which the new administration wishes to replace Obamacare, but what you have not heard are about the adverse effects that this will have on the mental health care for the citizens of San Mateo County, let alone the country. Congress just unveiled the American Health Care Act, which ends the requirement that Medicare coverage covers mental health care. It caps Medicaid funding, which will lead to deep cuts and jeopardize mental health services. It will freeze Medicaid expansion, putting young people who are first experiencing serious mental illness at risk. This act will reduce federal help to buy health insurance. With reductions, millions of people, including people with mental illness, won't be able to afford mental health care. The per capita cap, which they are also trying to ask us to accept for the funding of Medicare. Instead of flexibility, this would lead to deep cuts and jeopardize mental health services. This would also end enrollment of people in the Medicare expansion. This will leave people with mental illness and substance abuse conditions without the treatment they need to stay in school, on the job, and in recovery. Don't put millions of Americans with mental illness at risk. Cutting corners in mental health coverage will result in worsened conditions and costly use of emergency rooms, hospitals, and jails. I urge the Board of Supervisors and everybody here to please contact your local representative to see that this does not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Helene.
No more public comments, Mr. President.
Oh, thank you, Sukmani. At this time, one of the things that we had talked about, or at least I did when I first became the board president, is to, instead of making just Black History Month, it's Black History Year. And at every board meeting, trying to highlight something about what Black Americans have brought to this country. And my colleague, Carol Groom, has stepped up and is going to talk about Maya Angelou.
Thank you, President Horsley. I wanted to, in the spirit of what Supervisor Horsley wants to do this year, and also the fact that this is Women's History Month, I'd like to read a poem that was written by Maya Angelou. And most of you know that, the talented woman that she is. She was a singer and a dancer, an author, a poet, a teacher, a lecturer, and one of her most famous books, of course, is Why the Caged Birds Sing. But I thought I would read one of her poems today, and it's called Human Family. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, some thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived as true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, delight. Brown and pink, and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China, we weep on England's moors, and laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways we differ, in major we're the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike.
Thank you, Carol. I think that's exactly the theme that I was trying to get at initially, is that we are more alike than we are unalike. So thanks for that. Next would be time to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda items. Yes, Supervisor Pine?
Item 6, we can remove from the agenda, although I would like to speak to it briefly. The item has become moot.
Okay. So is that to the motion?
The motion would be then to approve the agenda and consent calendar with exception of item 6.
To remove item number 6. Okay. Is there a second? I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Did you want to speak about that now?
Sure, I can
Supervisor
just
Pine?
take a moment. As my colleagues know, and some in the audience might know, we included in the board package for today's meeting a proposal for the board's consideration to provide some funding to at that time, the proposed Burlingame Regional Ice Center. We at one time had 3 rinks in San Mateo County, the Bridgepoint facility, which the developer for many years was hoping to close to provide additional shopping in the Bridgepoint shopping area. So that's been closed since 2013. Belmont Iceland closed in April of 2016, and there's some concern about the Ice Oasis in Redwood City as to its future. And the problem with these rinks and with so many of our recreational assets is that the cost of land around here, of course, is so extraordinary that recreational assets are falling away because people buy the property to develop things. So you look at, there's many examples around the county, like Malibu Raceway or others. So with Bridgepoint closed, in Belmont closed, a group emerged called the Mid-Peninsula Ice Rink Foundation. And they were working very hard with the city of Burlingame, who has some land that they want to develop for a recreational or entertainment asset, and had put together a really interesting private-public partnership to provide so-called 2 sheets of ice in Burlingame. But just as we, Supervisor Groom and I, have been very engaged in this effort for quite a long time, and we thought that, there's certain things that are just hard for any one city to do, such as constructing a major recreational facility. So we put together this proposal, and just as we published it, we learned, much to our surprise, that the developer of Bridgepoint, the owner of Bridgepoint Shopping Mall, had a change of mind and has stated that the Bridgepoint rink will open. So the community is very excited about that. We're all optimistic that will actually come to be. But again, once that news was released, the Mid-Peninsula Ice Rink Foundation withdrew its proposal from Burlingame because its proposal was highly dependent on funding coming from the city of San Mateo, because the Bridgepoint developer at one point was to pay monies to San Mateo to get out of its obligation to have this ice skating facility. So, any event, that's just the context. But I think the bigger point I just wanted to make is that we do have this loss of recreational assets, and I thought it was a very exciting situation in that you had the city of San Mateo, the city of Burlingame, potentially the county, potentially Belmont. I mean, a lot of people were trying to come together to solve this problem. Don't have to worry about it right now, but it was an interesting collaboration between cities and the private sector. But again, at the current time, moot. So again, Supervisor Groom was involved with this for years. I became much more involved when the proposal came over to Burlingame, and just wanted to give people that context.
Well, I appreciate both of your efforts, and it's kind of a great victory for people who are ice skaters, I guess. So, did you want to say anything?
I think it's very interesting, Supervisor Horsley. The growth of skating and the growth of hockey, the growth of recreational skating, and the incorporation of those two. And Supervisor Pine and I went to San Jose on a recent Saturday afternoon to look at a 4-rink ice facility that was built a number of years ago through the San Jose Redevelopment Agency. And it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and the place was packed. And there was people of all ages, people of all colors, women and men, and we were very, very impressed, and just had thought that kind of thing could translate to San Mateo County if we all work together. And maybe it still can. Maybe there can still be an updated facility in San Mateo, given the fact that this is reopening. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it and watch it. But it's certainly been an interesting learning experience.
What's one of the things that you see with all these development projects, you do end up losing some recreational opportunities. So I really appreciate the work that both you and Supervisor Pine did. I'm sure that you're kind of part of the incentive to get some kind of a resolution between a developer and the city. So congratulations. I know the animal control officers are still here. We're not unsympathetic to your plight, and we have made overtures. I really can't, there's not much we can say about it today from the dais. It's really not on the agenda, but we are pretty much aware of what's happened. So thanks for your presentation as well as your packet of information. We'll look at that after the board meeting's over, so thanks. So now we'll go on to presentations and awards. The first one is a presentation of a proclamation designating Women's History Month. Supervisor Groom?
Thank you, Supervisor Horsley. We have a very strong and active commission on the status of women in this county, a group of women who work diligently to make sure that women's issues are brought to the forefront and are part of the group that puts on the Women's Hall of Fame. And as all of our commissions are hardworking and good thinkers and bring great resolution to issues in our county. And so with that, I would like to present to the chair of the Commission on the Status of Women, Linda Kelling, a proclamation celebrating Women's History Month in San Mateo County.
We didn't pass a motion, did we? We didn't do a motion on it, did we? Because you have one speaker on it.
Thank you very much for your leadership and all the hard work that you and your commissioners do. Thank you very much.
I presume this is the time I get to
Yes.
to speak. Thank you, Supervisor Groom. Good morning, President Horsley, honorable members of the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Byers. My name is Linda Kelling, and I am currently the president of the Commission on the Status of Women. But I am not the only one that sits on this commission. I have represented here today in the audience a few members of our commission. I'd like them to stand. Anisha, Becky, Fo. Thank them for all of their work. I'm sorry Honora Miller couldn't be here today, but her intern Dory is here, and she serves us very well. Dory, stand up. Thank you. And Rocio is going to be working with us for the next couple of months in Honora's absence. On behalf of the Commission on the Status of Women, I would like to thank you for proclaiming March as Women's History Month. Proclamations such as these create opportunities to acknowledge the past and present accomplishments of women, along with the struggles for equality that have and continue to be waged. We continue to make progress, however, and I can name many women who have stood out in history, and I think Supervisor Groom mentioned a wonderful one in Maya Angelou. These women have made a difference and worked hard without necessarily getting the recognition that they so deserve. Of course, there's that old cliche behind every successful man, but I'm not going to go into that one right now. I would like to take a few brief minutes to update you on the current work that the Commission on the Status of Women has undertaken for the past year. The Commission has been keeping actively informed about the diverse needs of women of all ages in San Mateo County and continues making recommendations on specific ways to meet those needs since this Commission started in 1982. The Commission also honors the achievements of local women through the Women's Hall of Fame. Our 2016-17 focus areas have been the following: women's political leadership development, including a multi-year gender analysis of county boards and commissions; advocacy related to women's criminal justice issues, including the programming for female inmates in the Maple Street Correctional Center, and initial work on the re-entry guide. In addition, planning for the March 2018 Women's Leadership Conference and Women's Hall of Fame ceremony, while at the same time integrating 7 brand new enthusiastic commissioners. So we've been kind of busy. Over the past several years, the Commission has focused some energy on encouraging women to become involved politically and has worked collaboratively with an organization called Women's Political Leadership Network on appointments, trainings, and networking opportunities. In fact, our commission co-sponsored a Women's Equality Day mixer with them for elected and appointed women last August. You know, it was kind of interesting when I saw this I'm from Foster City, and in the history of Foster City, I was only the third woman to be elected to the city council. So we need to see more of this going on. The Commission's interest in women's political involvement led to an ongoing gender analysis of county boards and commissions, now in its 5th year, that provides information on the nature of participation by women in the county on boards and commissions. That analysis is underway, and a report, I understand, is forthcoming later this spring. In addition to keeping aware of the needs of the inmates at the Women's Correctional Center over the past several years, the Commission's Women's Criminal Justice Working Group was pleased to have an opportunity to tour the new Maple Street facility last summer to see the significant improved conditions that will allow for expanded programming. And the commissioners were very impressed by the Choices program. I and some other commissioners had the opportunity to hear and see this firsthand, what this program Choices does, when we attended a holiday party in December. And the inmates put on a very interesting version of the Christmas Carol, which was quite entertaining. Commissioners will continue to meet with the Sheriff's Office to discuss gender-responsive programming and our current interest in developing a reentry guide, particularly for use by female inmates. The Commission on the Status of Women is once again collaborating with the Arts Commission during Women's History Month to hold a women's art exhibit here in the Hall of Justice. We hope you'll take a few moments during this month and enjoy the work that's on display. Efforts are underway to share the permanent Women's Hall of Fame exhibit with the San Mateo County Library System. The exhibit features each of the 284 honorees in a searchable iPad-driven kiosk, including photos, bios, the context of what these women have achieved, or what these honorees have achieved. The exhibit will rotate between library sites and accompany enrichment activities such as presentations from past honorees of the Women's Hall of Fame. The next Women's Hall of Fame will be held in March of 2018. Nominations will be accepted in the fall, beginning in September. I've been serving on this commission for 4 years and appreciate the opportunity to work with such a dedicated group of women. The commission held an energizing strategic planning retreat in February to develop the 2017-18 work plan. The retreat facilitator described or came up with an acronym, SMART. And I believe that this describes our group of commissioners. The way we tackle our objectives is to be specific, make sure the task is measurable, achievable, relevant, and make the task time-based. These new commissioners are eager to make a difference in the county. And on that day, we were very appreciative to have Supervisor Groom's presence and her input during that time period. In addition to our work on the women's criminal justice issues, the 2018 Women's Leadership Conference, the Women's Hall of Fame, and ongoing efforts to support women's political leadership development, the Commission will also be undertaking efforts to learn more about how members of the public perceive the status of women in San Mateo County through facilitated discussions with targeted groups of women. We will also continue to review legislation for potential recommendations to this board. We see this as a very important component to our job as your advisory board. I want to thank you for your ongoing support of the Commission on the Status of Women. We look to you as the leaders of this county and welcome any feedback and ideas on how the Commission may assist you on various issues concerning women. Keep us in the loop as we're ready, willing, and able to serve on behalf of the status of the women in this county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we actually make a motion to approve the proclamation, I have one public speaker, Martin Fox.
Good morning again, President Horsley, members of the board, my fellow veterans, Supervisor Slocum, and Mr. Balby, and County Council, Mr. Byers. Thank you for your service to the county, and thank you for recognizing the importance of remembering the long history of contributions made by women to the public health of our country, including the health and safety of those persons living with mental illness that makes them unlikely to survive safely in the community. In 1841, Boston schoolteacher Dorothea Dix visited a jail where she was appalled to see persons deemed insane locked up. It turned her into a crusader, an important figure among reformers of the 19th century. She advocated having the mentally ill transferred from jails to hospitals. She persuaded some 20 states into reform by treating insanity as an illness. As the number of seriously mentally ill persons on the streets and jails grew, there was considerable social pressure to take care of the mentally ill on a larger scale. Expensive palatial manors were built in rustic, attractive parts of the states. The facilities were designed on the premise that mental illness might be soothed in a setting of architectural and environmental beauty. The great writer Charles Dickens noted approvingly in his writings that mental hospitals in the United States were supported by the state, making the government a merciful and benevolent protector of people in distress. We now know the bankrupt Lanterman Peacher's short act, so-called Grand Compromise, makes our current mental health crisis entirely man-made, and it demonstrates how great a woman Dorothea Dix really was and can be to those who recognize the wisdom behind what she accomplished in her lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And Linda, thanks. That was a great report. So can we have a motion to approve the proclamation?
Second.
Oh, did I make the motion? I guess I did. All in favor? Aye. Aye. The next laugh at my own jokes, I guess. Next presentation is a proclamation declaring March 15, 2017 as a National Agricultural Day. And it's the presentation. It was going to be to the Farm Bureau, but their executive director wasn't able to make it today. So Fred Crowder is going to take the proclamation. I just want to point out that, my district has so much agriculture in the South Coast. And I grew up I was born in San Francisco, grew up in Daly City, and I really didn't have any idea about agriculture on the South Coast until I became sheriff. And then I, realized that whole South Coast is really just a very prolific area. I have a great deal of respect, that, having worked with so many ag producers, that it is really it's a difficult profession. You have to be dependent upon weather, pests, market conditions, competition from overseas, and yet agriculture in the coast side has been preserved. And it's a great heritage that we have, and really wanted to salute really the people on our South Coast that are producing all those great artichokes and Brussels sprouts and the rest of the stuff that they produce, as well as the flowers. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve this proclamation for declaring this as National Agriculture Day.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'm going to give this proclamation to Fred Crowder, our Ag Commissioner.
Thank you, President Horsley, members of the board, and good morning, County Manager Maltby and Council Byers. I'm Fred Crowder, the County Agricultural Commissioner, as advertised. I just wanted to take a little bit of time and thank you for your taking time out from your busy day to recognize National Ag Day. This is the 44th National Ag Day, and I apologize that Farm Bureau cannot be here. They had a last-minute conflict that came up. But nevertheless, this year's theme for National Ag Day is Food for Life. And recognizing that local agriculture not only feeds us, but it provides employment for thousands of families locally, and it also contributes to the economic strength of our communities. So and that not only includes the South Coast farmers in Pescadero and those areas, which are significant, but also the economic contributions of things like the Pumpkin Festival and agricultural tourism. So the local farm bureau and the local farm community also thanks you for your support of As Fresh as It Gets. The local recognition of local agricultural products is critical to many of our growers. It makes a difference in their bottom line, and we're seeing a transition in our agricultural community from a conventional model to more of a local model where they're selling direct. And that some of that's being driven by the local economics of just the cost of doing business here in San Mateo County and the benefits that it provides to farmers to be able to eliminate the middleman. But also thank you for your support of the agricultural ombudsman and some of our pest prevention programs. These not only serve to protect and support our agricultural community, but they have broader benefits towards our urban community and our environment as well. So thank you very much for this, and very much appreciate the recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Crowder. Next item is item number 3. It's the county manager's item. Maybe Nicholas Calderon?
Good morning, President Horsley, Supervisors, County Manager, County Council. As President Horsley said, my name is Nicholas Calderon. I'm here with Real Property. We're here to recommend to the board the acquisition of the property located at 225 Cabrillo Highway South, Building A in Half Moon Bay, which currently serves as the San Mateo County Coastside Clinic. In the next slide here, just to get the board orientated here, if you look at the top left, there's an intersection. That's the intersection of Highway 1 and 92. The property outlined in yellow is the property in question here. And then you'll see it's adjacent to downtown Half Moon Bay. The property was originally constructed in 1980 as part of the Shoreline Station commercial complex. The complex has 2 separate parcels, a parcel A, which is the subject parcel, and a parcel B, which consists of 2 commercial buildings. Parcel A is a 2-story wood frame building consisting of 15,335 square feet, and it's used as a medical office building with 40 dedicated parking stalls. The CCNRs that accompany the property call for the establishment of a management committee. However, there's been no record in recent years that this committee has ever been convened, and should the county decide that we want to acquire this property, that is something that we should really consider, as it would be beneficial to have a ongoing relationship with the other property owner for maintenance of common areas. But as I said, we've been a tenant for, as you'll see, we've been a tenant for 20 years, and as far back as our records go, there's no indication that this committee has ever been established. As you can see, we first leased space in the property in 1997. So as I said, we've been there for 20 years. And at the time, we leased a limited space to provide a limited scope of services. We provided primary care and OBGYN. And we were really the safety net service provider out there. In 2009, the Coastside Family Medical Center had filed bankruptcy, which led to many Coastside residents not having access to health services. It's estimated that about 40% of the Coastside Family Medical Center clients were Medicaid and Medicare recipients. So there were a lot of vulnerable residents out there who were not receiving services, which is when the county went in, and in 2010 we received almost $2 million worth of federal grant funding to remodel and retrofit the clinic so we could start providing an expanded scope of services to these residents. Today, the Coastside Clinic is the most comprehensive provider of health services on the Coastside. I'm going to have Sunny come up and take you guys through the finances of what our current lease is and the acquisition, and explain to you guys the numbers of the situation here.
Well, good morning, President Horsley, honorable board members, county manager, and county council. My name is Sonny Tong. I'm with the Real Property Division. I work with Nicholas. As part of our due diligence, we conducted a lease versus buy analysis that we're hoping to present to you today. First, we're going to take a look at the current lease that's in place. Our lease was originally negotiated in June 2008, and the current term ends in June 2020. The initial lease rate was $2.60, and starting in June 1st, 2017, the lease rate will jump to $3.70 a square foot. There's some operating expenses that the county pays for, and that is estimated to be 69 cents a square foot. So the lease rate on June 1st is going to be estimated at around $4.39. That's a full service equivalent. Cushman & Wakefield, a well-known commercial real estate firm in the area, has estimated rent for commercial space in Half Moon Bay at $2.37 a square foot, suggesting that our current rent is well above market. And as the numbers show, our monthly rent will be $67,358 starting in June, and the annual number is about $808,000. It's also important to note that the rent will increase 4% annually, and that compares to an industry standard of approximately 3%, suggesting again that we're well above market. The remaining term left, again, in our initial term is 3 years, but after that we have 2 5-year options, indicating that we can possibly stay at the space until 2030. This next slide is a spreadsheet showing the numbers of what I just stated. It's important to note that our lease allows us to stay for the next 13 years, but we extend our analysis to 15 years because we wanted to compare similar numbers in our acquisition study that I'll show later on. The first column shows the base rent amount. Again, on June, it'll be $370, and it increases annually at 4%. The next column shows the operating expenses, and after that, it's the full service equivalent, which is $439 a square foot for the first year. It's important to focus your attention to the last 2 columns, one being the monthly rent, and that's $67,000 for the first year, and $808,000 $67,000 for the month, and $808,000 for the year. The next slide just shows the acquisition options. Currently in contract for $8,150,000. We have a due diligence period that ends pretty soon, March 27th, and we're expected to close escrow April 10th. We can acquire the property outright at the contract price of $8.15 million. The other option is to acquire it with bonds. The next slide shows the numbers if we were to acquire it outright. First year, we'll just have the acquisition price, $8.15 million. After that, we're not expected to spend any other money other than for operating and maintaining the property. Our Public Works Department provided us with an estimate of approximately $150,000 to maintain and operate the building. That translates to $12,500 a month, as you can see on the first row. So in the first year, our expenses will be estimated at $8.3 million. Just going down the rows, you'll see that the numbers increase we're estimating at 3% a year. So in this scenario, if we were to acquire outright, the total obligation over a 15-year period would be almost $11 million, and the net present value of that would be about $9.4 million. This slide shows the scenario if we were to acquire with bonds. We could get a bond at an interest rate of 4%. It's important to note that you would have to get the bond within 18 months after acquisition of the property. But the first column shows the monthly debt service at 4%, which is $62,347. The next column is the operating expenses, which is the same as if we were to acquire it outright. And the column after that shows the monthly debt service and operating expenses. And the column after that is the operating expenses and debt service on an annualized basis. And the final column is the net present value. The takeaway is that the the total obligation, if we were to acquire with bonds, would be approximately $14 million in this scenario over a 15-year term, and the net present value of that is approximately $9 million. And this last slide that I'm going to talk about is just a summary of what I stated. Gives you a summary of the three scenarios. The first one being a leasing scenario. If we were to continue leasing it, again, we could possibly extend it for 13 years. The last 2 years in the study is potential if the landlord would allow us to stay beyond the next 13 years. And the last two columns are the numbers for in the acquisition scenarios. One, if we were to acquire it outright, and the last one is if we were to acquire it with a 15-year bond. So the numbers show the average annual cost if we were to lease it and acquire it. It's important to note that the first row on the second column it doesn't show the acquisition price. It just shows the operating expenses. We thought if we were to throw in the acquisition price, it would skew the numbers a bit. The second row shows the total obligation. So if we were to lease it for 15 years, it would be about $16 million. If we were to acquire it outright, it'll be nearly $11 million. And if we were to bond it out, it'll be $14 million. The third column, or third row, shows what the county would pay for with consideration for FQHC reimbursement. If we were to lease it, it would cost almost $7 million. And if we were to acquire it outright, it would be approximately $9.3 million. And if we were to acquire it with the bond, it would be approximately $6 million. And the last row shows the net present value. If we were to lease it, it'll be almost $10 million. If we were to acquire it outright, it'll be $9.4 million. And if we were to acquire it with the bond, it'll be approximately $9 million. So just the takeaway here is just to show that, at least from a financial standpoint, it makes sense to acquire this property rather than leasing the property. Mm-hmm. So I'll just hand it back to Nicholas to talk about the rest of the due diligence items.
Thank you. So when we entered the contract, we wanted to make sure that we did a full due diligence of the property and fully understood the condition. The first step was to have a property condition assessment produced. What the property condition assessment showed us is generally the property's in good condition. So, sorry about this. So, we had the contractor on site. They went in the crawl space under the building. They went in the attic. They checked all the systems. They checked the structure. They reviewed the as-builts, and were satisfied with what they saw. They identified no major deficiencies in the foundation or the structure, any of the systems. So that made us a lot more positive about the condition of the building. We also, Real Property consulted with Public Works, their facilities division, as well as their CAP project division, just to make sure that they didn't identify anything of significant concern in the findings, and so that was assuring that they did not identify anything of significant concern either. In summary, what the property condition assessment tells us is that the drive lane and the parking area are in poor condition and will require repair. The roof was replaced in 2012 and continues to be in good condition. From a comfort level, the windows are single pane, and so during winter months, it tends to get a little bit cold. The sewer lateral to one of the bathrooms on the first floor causes flooding. We brought Sims Plumbing out to camera the line to really understand better what was going on, and what we've learned is that it's a cast iron pipe and it's corroding on the inside. So what's happening is you're having these jagged edges that are catching what's being flushed, and that mixed with the bracing not being as supportive as it needs to be, it's causing some sag in the line. So that would be something that would need to be repaired. We'd be on the hook for that regardless of as a tenant or owner, because we installed that plumbing line in 2011. And then the elevator will reach the end of its expected useful life in 7 to 10 years. Given that it's 7 to 10 years away, we'll have an opportunity to start saving for that replacement now, and it's really the mechanics of it and the motor for that. So, but like I said, that gives us some time to start saving for that. Unfortunately, the county did some remodel work on the second floor in 2009 or 2008, and then again in 2011. So the property's in good condition. What we identified, here's a brief summary of really what we identified as needed improvements, and you'll see many of the items that I've discussed are on this list, and we've worked with Public Works, and the item before you today for consideration is accompanied by an ATR for $200,000 to get these projects started as soon as possible. We had a probable maximum loss report produced, which evaluates the seismic risk of the building and what the cost would be to replace it under a 475-year earthquake event. Overall, the report shows that it's in good condition and that it would withstand pretty well an earthquake. In 2011, the county went in and supported the foundation and put additional seismic measures in, and so that added to the value. So the average expected value would be a 6% replacement cost. Upper value would be 12%. And then we also had an environmental review done. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't getting ourselves into any long-term liability with environmental hazards. And the phase one didn't identify any concerns. No asbestos was identified, no lead-based paint was identified, no mold was identified, and radon was tested for and was not detected in any hazardous levels. It's a natural occurring element, and so it did not exceed any health hazard levels. Lastly, we had an ALTA survey done, and the ALTA survey is going to tell us what type of easements are encumbering the property, where the property lines are, and if there are any encroachments. What we did identify, it also tells us about floodplains. The property is out of the 500-year floodplain. I know in the memo it says 100. It is out of the 100-year. It's also out of the 500-year floodplain using FEMA's 2012 maps. The backside of the building is also encroaching on a PG&E easement. It's an active easement, and we've been working with PG&E to resolve this matter. What we'd have to do is have an agreement with PG&E that would essentially state they acknowledge that the building is encroaching onto their easement, and that they would not request the county to relocate the building in the future. I spoke with PG&E as recently as this morning, and they have an employee going out and marking the conduit. So they identified that there are 2 conduits in the easement. They will go out and mark those this week. And as long as the structure is outside of 12 inches from the conduit, then they have said that they will give us an agreement. The regulation requires that it has to be outside that 12-inch area. So we will continue to work with them and resolve that. And we're hopeful, but we need to wait and see. So that we'll know more about that this week. The recommendation to the board today is to acquire the property for the contract amount of $8.15 million, provided that a satisfactory agreement is executed with PG&E regarding the encroachment. And also just to clarify, so while the acquisition price is $8.15 million, there is about $2,000 worth of closing costs. The county would also be, due to the closing date, the county would be required to pay property tax. We'd receive a credit from the sellers during closing, and then we'd receive a reimbursement from the controller's office during the supplemental property tax process. So we wouldn't actually be out any money for the property tax. We'd be reimbursed for that in full. So that's the recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Supervisor Pine?
Thanks for the presentation, Nick. Yeah, a couple questions. Earlier in the presentation, our current rent is $370, and what's the market rent? That number went. I didn't hear that.
The market rent is $237. So we're paying over market. I think it's important to, for backstory, when the Coastside Family Medical Center filed bankruptcy, it was unexpected, and the county was put in a pretty tough position. And so we were put in this position where we had executed a lease that was not very favorable.
I see. Okay.
Due to the circumstances and the timing.
And then I take it we did a lot of TIs in there with that $1.8 million.
We did a lot of TIs. So we redid the entire first floor. We redid the plumbing. We worked with the landlord. They put some money in to redo the HVAC on the second floor. Prior to that, we reworked the top one of the top floor suites. But we created a dental clinic, medical exam rooms, nursing stations, everything on the bottom floor.
Okay. Yeah, I'm generally a fan of owning buildings when we can, and I'm going to be supportive of this. I think though the analysis probably would have been useful to do it at the market rent. I mean, in that, I don't know if that would ever been an option.
To renew the lease?
No, we calculated, when we're calculating the comparisons, we're using this inflated rent, which is probably our only choice because you can only put this thing so many places. But if we had market rent, the comparison wouldn't be as favorable. No, I would support it nonetheless because I think in the long run we want to own these buildings. But anyway, that's just a comment. And then, our operating expenses are $150,000 a year, huh? What does that require?
So that includes, so in that 69 cents per square foot, that includes our utilities, custodial services, our portion of the property tax, landscaping, all of that. So it's inclusive.
And then finally, so you said you were going to do an ATR for $200K. Mm-hmm. And that covers, I guess, the primary cost is the elevator?
So the elevator won't have to be done until 2000 for another 7 to 10 years. That $200,000 is going to cover the repairs to the drive lane, the repairs to the parking area. Okay. We need to put a emergency shutoff valve on the electrical line, on the gas line. We need to do a couple other. Well, we would like to do a couple other improvements, and through several conversations between real property and public works, it was determined that it probably made the most sense to do them up front.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I'm a little bit familiar with this because I remember when that Cosi Family Medical Clinic closed, and I'm also, was also aware that there are other buildings, and I did talk to Mr. Calderon about this, and I asked if there were other places because I know that he actually did a really great job of negotiating because I think the asking price initially was well over $9 million, almost $10 million if I'm not mistaken.
9.2.
9.2. And I know that he was looking around for other buildings because he did consult me and asked if there were other buildings where you could conceivably do this. And there aren't any in Half Moon Bay. And the other building that's really in the front is kind of a church building now. It's in really bad shape. So I think he, this was, I was kind of, to be honest, surprised that he was able to negotiate this down to $8.1 million. So congratulations. I think he did a fabulous job. They were really also trying, one of the reasons that we ended up with this higher rent in the first place, like, as he said, is that the Cosi Clinic closed and there was no place else to go. And it was very contentious and very disruptive at the same time. So we were, to some extent, held hostage to the fact that there were no other facilities over there. The 1.8 million that we received was really from the last good president. It was really their Reinvestment Act. It was when he first became president. Yeah, about 8 years ago. So it was well. Any case, he did. I congratulate you. Did a fabulous job. One thing I am interested in is are we only taking Medi-Cal patients there? Do we take other patients besides maybe?
I will defer to the chief of the health system on that one. She'll be able to better.
I wouldn't expect you to know that, Mr. Calderon.
Dr. Calderon.
Good morning, President Horsley, members of the board, Mr. Maltby and Mr. Byers. We serve Medi-Cal patients as well as people who are uninsured. Yeah. Most of those uninsured people are enrolled in the county's ACE program.
What do the numbers look like in terms of number of patients that call that their medical home?
It's about 52 people a day that are seen there.
Okay.
Did we see a big increase with ACA?
Well, we have, because of the county's ACE program, had a dedicated service for people who were formerly uninsured. Yeah. We've had a great uptick in coverage. But because of the ACA and the health plan's expanded enrollment, there are more patients assigned to that clinic than previously. I also just want to mention that we serve people with mental illness and drug and alcohol problems on the site. It's been a very good location, and finding an alternative location in that community would be very challenging, partly because of the stigma associated with those services.
Exactly, thank you. So, okay.
Do you want a motion, Mr. President?
Yes, I do.
I would move that the county manager or his designee consummate the purchase of real property known as 225 Cabrillo Highway, South Building A, in the city of Half Moon Bay for an amount not to exceed $8,190,821.12 by executing all the required notices, amendments, consents, approval deeds, certificates, acceptance, and documents, and B, the approval of an appropriation transfer request transferring $200,000 from fixed assets lands to fixed asset structures for the completion of identified capital improvement projects and making the corresponding appropriations for operating transfers.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
If
Yes.
I might, I just wanted to say I appreciate the kind words, but this wouldn't have been able to be done without Sonny and Justin Mates, our attorney, and our broker, Ben Paul, was great as well. So this was really a team effort.
Thank you. I appreciate your whole staff. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mr. Calderon. We're now on to item number 4. Mr. Porter, the no parking on the south side of El Granada Boulevard.
Thank you, President Horsley. Members of the board, Mr. Maltby and Mr. Byers. 2 weeks ago, I presented this PowerPoint presentation to you. Just to refresh your memory, in El Granada, there's been a request for a no parking zone to deal with site distance issues for a driveway in the vicinity. And I can't read that, but it's on El Granada Boulevard. There's a fire lane on the opposite side of the roadway that we are proposing a no parking zone on. These are some photographs that show some of the site distance challenges for that location. Letters of opposition and letters in support, or letters, actually statements in support have been provided in the locations that you see here. And that's really the presentation. I do know. At the last meeting, there were questions about prevailing speeds in the area. We did some speed surveys since in the last 2 weeks. The prevailing speed, or the 85th percentile speed in that location, is 23 miles per hour. So the 25 mile an hour speed limit is appropriate for that location. We've also done an accident investigation. We found 3 accidents on that segment in the last 12 years that are non-DUI related. So that's pretty much the feedback from the questions that we had at the last meeting, and I'd be happy to try to answer any further questions you might have.
Any questions? I actually went out there, and to prove it, I actually have pictures of myself looking at it. So, in any case, Mr. Vincent Acuna, here to speak on the item.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to bring this to your attention and to let you see the situation, how it is. And I appreciate that the county does allow citizens to be able to bring this type of safety issues to your attention. And you have any questions? No?
No, I don't think so. Just going to point out that I did go out there and I took a look at it, and I'm going to recommend it's kind of a compromise in that we do a no parking zone. If you, it's actually on in front of 130. Because it seemed to me that there's a pretty sharp corner, and it is pretty difficult. If there's a car there, it's pretty difficult to see. But the no parking in the up zone, it seemed to me that it didn't seem as critical. So I'm going to recommend that we make a motion to approve the no parking it's the 27 feet on El Granada Boulevard.
The A is actually, I believe, at 138.
What is it?
No, it's not. You're right.
Yeah,
It is at one front of 130, yeah.
Yeah, it's the downside.
My request I live at 138, my request for B is when the car is parked in that area, it creates a wall of cars, and I cannot see the corner. So all I'm asking, I'm not asking to make the entire area no parking zone, just the northern part of my property, so that when a car parks near my driveway, I can look up and I can see the corner. If you have a picture. Oops, can we go back? No problem. The cars. One more. On the one on the left. As you can see, that car that is in the proposed no parking zone hinders my view of the corner. There's a right-hand turn that's up there, and I can't see it at all. And then actually what happened at the proposed parking zone behind it, when there's a car parked there, it is a wall of cars. Actually, today when I was leaving, I almost got hit. So that's my request for the parking.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
On number B.
I'm going to stick with my recommendation. It seemed to me that the other one is not as critical, and there isn't any parking on the other side of the street. So that's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We go item number 5 now. It's the county managers. Unless it's Lieutenant Fogarty or Raina Ferralis.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Byers. My name is Raina Ferralis, Deputy County Manager. I want to point out to the board for this item, we did have a revised Exhibit A, which we inadvertently left out the park-specific location, so we added that to Exhibit A. We do have a couple of new damages to report. So we have Mr. Jim Porter here, our Public Works Director, and then we also have Sarah Birkland, our Acting Parks Director, here to show some slides on the damages. And then Mr. Lieutenant Bill Fogarty, Director of OES, can provide us an update on state and federal reimbursement process.
Thank you. President Horsley, members of the board, I wanted to provide an update since we were last with you 2 weeks ago regarding the level of damage within the county. As Ms. Ferralis mentioned, we have seen some additional damage since we met with you last time. In particular, we had another sewer line fail that I mentioned 2 weeks ago. We have drawings of that. We're also seeing continued movement of the slides that we are already that we have already identified. But this map shows a good indication of where these problems are. The coast side was really hit the hardest. Anything on a hill experienced significant damage. Some of the new failures that we're seeing is out in Moss Beach and Seal Cove. Ocean Boulevard was closed again on another segment. That's a road that's along a bluff that's been closed partially, but now we're seeing more failure. We, thanks to Supervisor Horsley, several years ago, we did construct an alternative route for those residents to get out of that community. So thank you, Supervisor Horsley, and I know the community supports the work that you've done in the past on that. With regard to the remaining areas, perhaps I can just jump right in and talk about it. So this is Murata Road. There's a little bit of comparison about what it used to look like and what it looks like today. Murata has received a significant amount of damage, primarily from wave action. What's gone on is the waves come over that breakwater and they just devastate our roadway. In order for us to fix that, there needs to be dry conditions. We put cutback asphalt in there, and the cutback has to be in a dry situation and it needs time to dry out. So we've had a hard time making that road passable. I know our crews have thrown cutback down there. We're just not clear how long that's going to last. But you can see in that bottom right photograph, what's also concerning is the riprap, or those large stones, are beginning to move. You can see the asphalt peeling away from the roadway. That's a sign that that rock is moving towards the ocean. So more will be revealed there. Out in the Murata Bridge, which is just south of where I showed you the last picture, this is somewhat concerning. There is a sewer line that's been mounted along an old roadway abutment that crosses the creek right along a pedestrian bridge. What is concerning is the photograph on the right. There's a piece of concrete that you see near that red circle that's dangling on that sewer line. If that concrete goes, that sewer line will likely go with it. We've notified the sewer agency that is responsible for this line, and they're watching it closely. But that's a new bit of information since we last met. This shows you a little bit about what Gazos Creek Road has looked like. We had some pretty major failures out there, but we've been able to open that road since that time. You're familiar with Scenic Drive up in La Honda. This will show in January. This is what we initially saw. And this was in later January as a result of the water that had actually entered the hill in the early January storms, the storms from the 3rd and the 6th. That just loaded up the hillside, and the road itself continues to move. We're continuing to see movement out there. This is what it looks like closer to today. The above photo is the current condition. The one below is at the toe of the slope. You can see that disturbed material. That's the toe of the slope pushing out at the bottom there. That is a major repair job right there. In Trotta Way, that's the bridge that gets you into La Honda. I mentioned before we had a tree come down in that creek that then diverted water behind our culvert abutment, which essentially is a bridge. So our guys came in and set up that riprap there, backfilled it with gravel. We've stabilized the site, but that will have to be removed and structural backfill placed in that location, and also a more permanent buttressing solution for the side of the bank needs to be evaluated and installed. This is a newer area up on Old La Honda Road. We've got about 1,000 feet of bank failure up there. That road is currently closed. What is particularly concerning is at the bottom of that slope, we're seeing land movement. And what that says is there's a possibility that what you're seeing on top is actually being exacerbated by the failure at the bottom. So the repair on this could be somewhat superficial on top, or it could be the entire slope is failing, and we won't really know that answer until we've retained a geotechnical engineer, taken some borings, and found out exactly where the slide plane is on that area. This is Alpine Road in Ladera. This is what we're going to call Site 4 for the Alpine Trail project. This was the location where immediately to the right of those gentlemen standing in the picture, there's a gas line, a water main, and a sewer line. So West Bay Sanitary District came in and put in some stitch pier, a stitch pier wall. They basically drilled in concrete piers to hold up their sewer line. However, you now have a vertical face right there, which we're concerned about because the creek will continue to erode back to those stitch pier walls, and we'll need to replace the walkway there as well. This is the newest failure. I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. This is Oak Knoll Sewer. The sewer line runs through an easement line, and what you're seeing there is the repair job. The bottom left photo is very important because in order to repair that, our contractor had to rappel down the side of that slope, tie off that sewer main, pull it back, and make a connection on the side of the hillside. So we currently have a temporary connection in there, but we're going to need to repair that line with a permanent solution. And that's going to be a very difficult job. As you can see, it's a steep slope, and the land in there is essentially an active landslide with trees moving everywhere. In the Highlands, this is an update on the sewer line that we've lost up there. We've been able to work with PG&E to get a temporary electrical connection back there, so we're bypass pumping. We will be retaining a geotech to find out what the best solution for that problem right here is. There's really two solutions. We can come in with a retaining wall type solution to hold up that slide, or if the slide mass is continuing to move, we've used a different kind of solution, which is basically drilled piers along the length of the slide where you suspend the sewer line off of that, and the sliding material just moves around those piers. so that our line stays intact, but the earth moves around it. That's been used in other easement areas, and it may be a cost-effective solution here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah Berklin, our Parks Director, to go through some of the damages in the parks.
Good morning, President Horsley, honorable members of the board, County Manager Maltby, and County Council Byers. I wanted to share some images of the types of damage that we're seeing in our parks, and starting with an area where the damage is most substantial and significant from our perspective, and that is Old Hall Road in Pescadero Creek Complex. This is a road that extends about 5 miles through the park. It provides emergency and administrative access for the Parks Department, as well as emergency access for CAL FIRE for fire suppression. And what we are seeing here is a significant landslide that has actually made the road impassable to vehicles. And I've got another image here. You can see the drop in the road where the landslide started. And so that section of road, this is at Fall Creek, is impassable at this time.
Could you describe how they were constructed in the first place, probably in the 19th century?
Yeah, so this road was built in the 1900s for a rail line to carry timber. And what it also has is along the way 8 large stream crossings that are constructed of crib logs that were then backfilled with dirt. We happen to have in this park the honor of having potentially the largest, these are also called Humboldt crossings, the largest Humboldt crossing in the state of California. And that one is compromised. It's called Dark Gulch Crossing. And it's a crossing we've been looking at over the last year or two because it's been a concern for some time. Now we're noticing that the sinkholes that existed previously are opening up, and there are additional signs of instability in that crossing, as well as another crossing further to the west at Harwood Creek. So those 2 Humboldt crossings are showing some real signs of instability, and there's a concern about having any kind of passage over those crossings until we do a more thorough evaluation of the damage.
So what's the Humboldt Creek crossing again?
It was constructed to allow travel by rail initially, and what they would do is take very large pieces of trees, of timber, logs, and they would knit those together in kind of a crib, almost like a log cabin, knitting together of the logs. Then they would actually backfill onto that structure with soil and dirt, because what they were trying to do was create a very gentle grade for the rail line. So we've got, I think, 8 of those on this road. And they're challenging to repair, they're challenging to remove, partly because of that structure. And over time, they're collapsing. I guess people have found in the Redwood National Forest other huge root balls. I mean, all kinds of things can be found in these Humboldt crossings, aside from dirt and logs. So that's going to be a challenging repair potentially for the Parks Department. And we're working on a cost estimate right now with somebody who's got a lot of experience with this type of road, this type of crossing, and this type of damage. In addition to Old Hall Road, we're seeing accelerated erosion at Murata Surf West and Pillar Point Bluff. And we, of course, expect some bluff erosion to occur over time. Past geotechnical reports have suggested we would see erosion rates of 4 to 8 inches a year. But this year, with the winter storms, we saw huge blocks of the bluff come down, particularly at Pillar Point, and crash onto the beach below. I don't know if you can see, but this photo on the right actually shows a user-created trail that is now obliterated by this collapse of the bluff. So we've got signage, of course, up there to warn people about the dangers, and have done a lot of posting on social media to let people know. We keep our web page updated on what's going on in the parks as far as potentially dangerous conditions as well. So this is one we're just monitoring at this time. Of course, we've seen a lot of downed trees across trails, not surprising. It's just the extent of downed trees that's really been quite remarkable. Where they fall in the middle of the forest, we don't do a whole lot, but where they fall across trails, we get out there and try to clear them as quickly as possible. One of the other things that's been striking is just the loss of some really large trees. There's a big oak tree on the left at JSP Park. The one on the right is from Huddart, and you can see those are some good size trees. And then another, we've got a couple areas where we've got some significant trail damage. This is maybe the biggest one, Alambique Trail in Wonderlook Park, which is a very popular trail that takes you all the way from the bottom of the park up to Skyline Avenue. And there we had quite a large landslide that has taken the trail out. It's also not passable, so that trail is closed. And reconstructing it in place is going to be challenging because of the slope. We'd have to do a piling soldier wall construction to build it in place. So we're going to look at that option as well as a potential reroute depending on topography. I think that might be the last slide. Any questions?
Okay. Questions?
Question.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Were there any issues around trees falling in San Bruno Park? Because I've heard from constituents. I don't know if it's outside the boundary line or within the boundary line, but I don't know if there was any issues.
No, I haven't heard about San Bruno in particular, but we did have concerns from neighbors at San Pedro Valley and also Junipero Serra. We went out and did some clearing for a neighbor where a tree had come across a fence. But no, I hadn't heard about San Bruno Mountain in particular, but I can follow up and see.
Any other questions?
One question, if I may.
Supervisor Pine?
And this is, I follow up to a question I asked when we last talked about these problems. And you look at the scope of repair that's necessary, and you say, "Wow, that could cost a lot." Mm-hmm. And County Manager, Malpe, I know we're applying for state, federal funds, but this shortcoming. I mean, are we going to be able to? I think you said we're going to take from reserves to fix things like this.
Yeah, we'll address that in the budget capital program that you'll see in June, and we'll try to prioritize. We will have to front the money, and the question is over what period of time and what percentage of what we front we'll actually get back, and we'll try to make some estimates then. But I'm sure those will be refined as we go along.
Yeah, that'd be terrific, and to kind of get that breakdown in the budget process, and. Some of these are just super challenging to fix.
Yeah. The Old Hall Road, it really does present some challenges for us.
Maybe some of these can't be fixed. I don't know.
Yeah, and the tricky thing is it's a large park, and that really is the only road that gets to the center of the park, and it is used by CAL FIRE.
Okay.
But I mean, we'll be looking at every option, and if there's a more cost-effective alternative that maybe results in us abandoning that road, I mean, we would certainly consider that. So everything's on the table. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. President, just a follow-up response to that. We're also preparing an ATR for Old Hall Road to take money out of contingencies, so that should be coming to the board probably next month or two. So that is also coming. I'd like Lieutenant Bill Fogarty to come up as well to talk about the status of federal and state reimbursement.
President Horsley, members of the board, County Manager Malpe, County Council Byers. What we want to do is just sort of give you a brief update from the last time I presented in front of you. What we have had is on March 8th, we had California Office of Emergency Services and FEMA arrive at our location. At 8 o'clock in the morning, we conducted a 30-minute briefing, and we traveled to areas that were impacted until 3 p.m. During that time period, what we do is we categorize all the major damage because that's what they wanted to see. They obviously are aware of all the other continuing damage that we have. What we also do is we actually put out a county announcement working with the county manager's office, who are great partners with our communications director, thanks to Supervisor Horsley and his staff member, Deborah Hurst, to go ahead and make sure that members of the community were aware of how to report damages. We're happy to report that people have been reporting damages. We do check that line and that email on a daily basis. We had roughly 24 people who reported damage, and we submit that claim to actually Cal OES for them to go ahead and review it and tell us what is actually accessible and what is not. Then finally, we actually had the state have a proclamation that was sent out to the president and to ask him and FEMA to go ahead and declare a federal emergency. Again, they have continued to keep believing that we need to break these storms into each individual storm series rather than continuation. Cal OES has finally agreed to make it one continuous event, but now we need FEMA to do the exact same thing. So that's where we're at with that. We're waiting for the President's office to make a decision on that and get back to us. And the final thing is, just to echo what Mr. Porter had said before, we're continuing to keep seeing damage. And one of the things that we do need to emphasize is actually Portola Valley just let us know yesterday that they have roughly $2.5 million worth of damage sustained to Upper Alpine Road. That was just discovered. They had a tech analyst come out, take a look at it, but that's their own estimate. We still, again, just made aware of it, so you will see us appearing yet again in front of you another time in 2 weeks to have the proclamation continue, because we need to get Cal OES and FEMA to come out and take a look at that as well. And again, that's the city of Portola Valley, so it is an incorporated, not unincorporated area.
Any questions? So what do we need to do to get ourselves covered by the federal declaration? Is there
At this point, we've submitted the paperwork to California OES. California OES submitted to FEMA. So now we're just sort of waiting for the president to make a decision about what he will decide to do.
Okay. Is there anything we can do or should do, or in the meantime?
To the president, certainly our congressional representatives might be helpful in supporting our claims to FEMA.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant Fogarty. Sarah, could you, about the Old Hull Road, is it possible to have a catastrophic failure that would send
one of those
logs
Humboldt
into the creek?
crossings? It's possible, but I think it's less likely that it would be catastrophic in the sense that it would happen quickly. I think we would see it would start to collapse. It's just, I think that's because of all the knitting together of the log structures. It's going to prevent it from slipping like a landslide moves. So there's some impediment to that kind of catastrophic failure. The concern, though, is in traveling over these, you can punch through. So somebody on a horse or even hiking or a vehicle could punch through one of these crossings and injure themselves. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
President Horsley, we do need a motion based on a recommendation to continue the local state of emergency.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. We're now on to item number 7. It's a resolution authorizing a one-time $5,000 grant to St. Francis Center.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 7 is pretty self-explanatory. There's a youth group in North Fair Oaks called the North Fair Oaks Youth Initiative, and they do a lot of work on youth development and leadership skills. One of the things that they do annually is take a field trip to some location in California, and this stipend provides the cost for 30 youth members who are aged 14 to 22 to attend this leadership field trip April 9th to 10th. And I can personally vouch for the program. It's led by, slips my mind, Carmelita.
Yeah.
Her name slips my mind. In any case, it's a great program, and I would ask that you join with me in approving this resolution. And I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now the county manager report.
Mr. President, members of the board, just to call out a couple of items. One, that Dan Melville, former fire chief of the city of San Mateo, has been appointed the new director of the Public Safety Communications Center. We certainly welcome him. He's been an assistant director for some time, and I think he will do an outstanding job in his new role. Also, that Chad Woodburn has been appointed the new county Coast District Coordinator for the Office of Emergency Services. Dan lives on the coast and has a history in emergency providing agencies. And finally, that the county, the City County Association of Governments, and all of the cities within the county have received the 2017 Climate Leadership Award issued by the Environmental Protection Agency. It may be the last award that they ever issue. I'm not sure. But, could be a collector's item in years to come. But we're very pleased to receive it, and it recognizes the collaborative nature of the work that we've been doing for some time now on climate change and climate adaptation.
Right. Now time for board members' reports. Any reports? Supervisor Slocum?
Yep, thank you. Some of you may know that the North Fair Oaks area has a public art work group, and that work group was responsible. If you've been to North Fair Oaks and seen the metal sculptures in front of the library and other places, they were responsible for that. Their latest project, they wanted to do a mural, and this advisory group, has 9 residents of North Fair Oaks on it. They set out a RFP to get a mural painted in the neighborhood. They received 15 submittals. They selected 4 finalists, and they recommended 1 mural artist to the North Fair Oaks Community Council, and the council approved the concept. The artist's name is just amazing, is Nico Berry, and you see a picture here. It's actually right next, or a couple buildings down from the North Fair Oaks School, but it's the whole side of a building, and those are obviously beautiful California poppies that he painted. The kids were involved in the project, and there was a celebration. Mike Callaghy gave a great speech there, and there was music, as you can see, the mariachis there, but it's really something. What it says on the wall is "I am somebody," and in Spanish it's "soy." You can correct me on my Espanol, but "soy Algonquin." So it just means "I am somebody." That was an important message for the school children right down the block from here, and I just wanted to read you. The students at the Fair Oaks Elementary School wrote essays about this mural, and I wanted to read to you just a brief entry called "The Wall," which was written by a 5th grader, Jasmine, forgive me for the last name, Fele Punonono, which I know I murdered, but let me just read Jasmine's essay here. "The mural is the best thing that has ever happened here. All the kids like it, and so do I. The mural has a message on it, and it is really important. The message on the mural says, quote, 'I am somebody.' And I think that message is great for little kids. It's great for little kids because someday, or today, a little kid will think they are somebody. Well, that's not true. When they see the mural, they will see they are somebody, and they always will be." Goes on to say, "I also like the mural because the details are so beautiful. To me, the poppy flowers are there to represent California, my home state, your home state, our home state. All in all, I like this mural because it's message to kids to tell them that they are somebody, and because the details are really beautiful. Hopefully someday someone will read this paper and get what I am saying." All right.
All right.
That's it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good.
How old was
Thanks.
that person? 5th grader, so I'm not sure about that age, but very well
I
done.
think they're about 10 years old, probably,
Yeah.
5th grade.
There you go.
I know
It's
that
a
from my
beautiful
grand-
mural. If you get a chance, or if you want to go down there, I'll take you. But it's just gorgeous.
About Hampshire at Fair Oaks. Yeah. Supervisor Pine?
Nothing today.
Supervisor Canepa?
Sure. I saw it on Facebook, Supervisor Slocum. It's really uplifting. You know, it's always great to see things that are about our community, about collaboration and compassion. And on that note, I want to invite, I think I've invited the Board of Supervisors, I know I have, but we're having an event, it's called District 5 together. I want to thank my staff for their wonderful work. It's rather unique in a sense because the students from the Black Student Union, Paseo, and other groups are actually providing the food. And it's a free event, it's for everyone. Last count, and I want to thank the County Manager's Office, County Council, we have about 40 groups that are going to be tabling. And so the genesis of this event was, you know, how do we connect our local communities, especially up in my district, with just resources. And the county's always done that. The county's always done that, so it's nothing new. So that event is, it's Saturday, this Saturday, March 18th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Jefferson High School Theater, and the performances are going to be remarkable. I know St. Patty's Day is on March 17th, But the next day we have Irish dancers, Burmese dancers, folklorico. It's just really everything that represents San Mateo County. So I encourage everyone to come, and should be a great time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks for putting that together. So now will we adjourn it to a closed session? Pretty cool.
That's a lot of that's a lot of booths.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of booths.
We're just hoping the booths don't,
So he's gonna get
Any day now, or any time now. We're back from closed session. Mr. Byers, will you report on the results of closed session?
Yes, thank you, President Horsley. The board took two final actions that are required to be reported under the Brown Act as final actions. Both were by unanimous votes, 5-0. First, the board authorized payment of $85,000 for a full settlement and release of the workers' comp claim in the workers' comp matter of Bobak Sedrulin. Second, the board authorized payment of $78,000 to Jeff Edrulin as a full global resolution of both his general liability as well as his workers' compensation cases. $13,000 will be appropriated towards the general liability case, and $65,000 will be appropriated for a full resolution of his workers' compensation matter. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. We're now adjourned.